Don't think he's Mount Rushmore, but I think the reason that I don't is because I don't think his resume is strong enough. Like, I think that because of Terence's ability, he missed out on a lot of those big names. He beat Spence. Spence was at the back end of his career. He beat Canelo. Dare I say, Canelo's at the back end of his career. They're amazing wins. And he beat everyone that was put in front of him. And I think he could have beaten so many more fighters, but his stardom come at the back end of his career.
When Eddie Hearn publicly challenged the claim of all-time greatness in boxing made by Terence Crawford, right after the American boxer had retired, he raised one of the most contentious debates in the history of the sport.
Now, ability-wise, I think he may be on the Mount Rushmore. But I just feel like if you look at his wins, I always joke with him and say, tell me your best wins. This is pre-Canelo, right? And he says, my best win is Ricky Burns, right? It's my fighter, great fighter. But Ricky wasn't a pound for pound great. I mean, he was one of the greatest Scottish fighters of all time. He's a 3-division world champion.
Additionally, Oscar De La Hoya further escalated the insult by directly calling out Terence and claiming that the competitive level throughout his career was not particularly high. He did not doubt that many active fighters would be able not only to struggle with Terence, but even to overcome him. He wrote down in a comment, "What a tool. I can name 4, 5, 6 fighters that compete and probably even beat him. Please." He then responded negatively when he participated in an online debate on the recent success of a fighter. It seemed to be the result of the long-standing habit of De La Hoya to dispute the histories that he did not agree with, and particularly when he felt that credit was being handed too easily. Referring to Terence's career, he wrote, "2 good fighters he beat, congratulations." The retirement of Terence, Bud Crawford rocked the sport, remaining unbeaten, unchallenged in various weight classes, and by far the most versed fighter of his time. Crawford decided to retire from boxing not when he was on a downgrade, but when he was on top. Meanwhile, Jake Paul responded to the public when Terence Crawford announced his retirement with a critical approach, instead of taking the move at face value. He contextualized his answer with the notion that the high-profile fighters usually go away on a temporary basis, but not permanently as long as there is attention, business, and major events.
I mean, he's not retired, bro. You guys have seen this millions of times in boxing. He's not retired. I mean, but he's got everyone talking about him now because of that. So smart play by Terence.
The ups and downs of the career of Crawford were not common since his childhood, when he was a lightweight champion up to his supremacy in the welterweight category and beyond. He had developed the reputation of a fighter who could fit in with anyone and everything. Southpaw or orthodox, pressure fighter or counterpuncher, Crawford was an intelligent and precise solver of problems. It was his change of position and command over distance that rendered him one of the hardest to match against in contemporary boxing. He had emerged as a 3-division undisputed champion by the time he retired, and this has put him in a select group. In an open conversation, Eddie Hearn implied that although Crawford had talent and accomplishments that could not be overlooked, making the jump at this point might make him difficult to include in the GOAT debate. Meanwhile, he also admitted a more real possibility, which is that Crawford perhaps just became content with his success and chose to retire before he could be toppled.
Knowing the game, are there lingering injuries, which might be more likely, where every camp, was he 38 years old, 39? Like every camp gets very, very hard. For the boxing world and even for fight fans, it's not frustrating because it's his decision, but he's now reached that superstar status. You kind of want him to keep going, and it wasn't like his performance against Canelo showed signs of aging or anything like that, but he's also made a lot of money. What a time to bow out on top. A lot of fighters have one too many.
Hearn utilized this to take time and consider how uncommon and commendable it is that high-end combatants are opting out of the game voluntarily, particularly when deemed among the best to compete in the field. His remarks were moderate in extending to business reality, and at the same time, he was undoubtedly impressed with the career and the personality of Crawford.
So maybe he feels like the way my body is, maybe I'll get beat, and I don't need to get beat. I've got everything I've got. Or maybe he had a contract to fight someone else, but if he retires, he's not in that contract anymore, or it will give him greater leverage to negotiate a deal. That's just me being devious, which is part of my job. He's thought this is a good time to bow out, or got a few niggles and I don't think I should fight anymore. But if physically he's able, he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. So his IQ's on another level, but what is there to do?
It is so evident that the retirement time of Terence was no less important than the achievements themselves. Crawford retired with a game that defined him to enhance the concept of him having nothing to prove anymore as he won decisively. The same evaluation was expressed by Teddy Atlas when he was reviewing the legacy of Terence Crawford and speaking about what makes an elite champion and an all-time great champion distinct. He described how raw talent, training, and eventual success are merely components of the formula when determining fighters at the very top of the sport in history. Atlas stressed that he sought something more than skill and physical prowess, something that showed itself when a fighter faced utter pressure and when things were going badly.
You have to be one of these guys that, besides everything I laid out, your talent, your style, your technique, your ability to fight at a high level, your longevity, all of those things are part of the criteria. But then I want to see the X factor. I want to see the specialness. I want to see that special ingredient that when everything ain't working and one night it ain't working, you're in trouble and you got to freaking pull yourself out of that fire, you can do it. That special ingredient. He had it.
Teddy Atlas went further to build upon his assessment of Terence Crawford by presenting what he referred to as the ultimate praise he could offer a fighter. His viewpoint was that of a historian of champions through generations and could elaborate that real greatness was gauged by the ability of a fighter to be able to cross his or her period. Atlas clarified that the flexibility, smarts, and technical equilibrium of Crawford would enable him to fight in any era of boxing history.
So having said that, the greatest compliment I can give Mr. Crawford, who I've always been a fan of, everyone knows that, before everyone was. The greatest compliment I can give him is he fits into any era. I would put him in and be able to handle himself and be competitive with any era. And Teddy Atlas can't give a better compliment. I put him in with any, I'll say it again, I don't give a damn. I put him in with any era. And I'll go further. He's one of the greatest. Andre Ward was good. He's one of the greatest switch hitters ever. A guy that can fight lefty or righty seamlessly. So he's great at that. He might be the greatest at that.
The announcement of the retirement of Terence Crawford by many people in the boxing sport has also been taken as a strategic move and not a definite declaration. Some of the observers thought that the timing gave him leverage, as his name remained in the headlines, and this made him worth more in the next round of negotiations. As there were still huge fights on offer and promoters were keen on blockbusters, the announcement was viewed as an attempt to perform a test run. In that regard, the moment displayed a legacy preservation and calculated business purpose, with Crawford being left at the center of attention. In response to news of the retirement of Terence Crawford, Gareth A. Davies initially stated that the move was extremely surprising, considering that Crawford had not lost a match in his whole career and had a history of success in various weight classes. He has detailed the progression of Crawford since his initial breakthrough win in the UK to his latest blockbuster match on a streaming service of international scope, which portrays the retirement as a surprise, considering that Crawford continues to engage in high-profile, high-revenue fights.
It is a shock. Terence Crawford, as you say, 42-0, 3-weight undisputed champion, 5-weight world champion. He first came to our attention beating Ricky Burns in Scotland at lightweight. He's just had that massive fight, which was also on Netflix, like this one is on Friday night, with Saul Canelo Alvarez, and he's saying he wants to keep his legacy intact, wants to go out undefeated. Gents, I think this is a tactic to get more money, in my view. I think it's a tactical affair, because he's supposed to be fighting Canelo again in September. So I just think he's stepped away so that people try and draw him back with a big truckload of cash.
Gareth A. Davies went on with analysis by looking at the presence of Terence Crawford and his attractiveness both in and out of the ring. He said that the technical versatility and the raw confidence that Crawford possessed had enabled him to become more recognizable and influential in the sport. Davies used an example of Crawford defeating one of the best fighters previously as evidence that he could dominate the best athletes in the sport on the highest level.
He's got the physical charisma in his switch hitting style. He's an amazing boxer. He completely outboxed and befuddled Canelo in that fight back in September that we were at for TalkSport. I think he will do it again. I just think he's capable of he's become a bigger personality in the sport. He's one of the favoured sons of Turki Al-Sheikh. I think they'll get him back. If he does walk away, though, at this point, and we don't see him again, he's got an incredible legacy as the pound-for-pound #1 right now.
Crawford preferred mastery to nostalgia. In a time when warriors can remain too long and lose the achievements they had achieved, he chose to walk away with the greatness. The message behind that choice created an impact on many viewers, as they looked at it as an expression of self-knowledge and discipline, as opposed to evading it. Nevertheless, boxing has never understood greatness in anything so harsh and layered. The remarks made by Eddie Hearn were a classic debate in the sport, that to be considered all-time, one has not just to be dominant, but has to be rich in depth, frequency, and diversity of elite competition.
Only because I'm skeptical and I know the business, so he might just be done. He might have a few niggling injuries and might just think, I just don't want to do it anymore. Or he might have a contractual issue, or where a retirement could get him out of something, or make someone pay more, or again, it's only because I know the game. But it's also very likely that he's just thought, I'll bow out on top. And if he has, I think that's admirable.
The brilliance of Crawford was not denied by Hearn. Rather, he was wondering, was the resume of Crawford, as a matter of high-profile, epical rivalries, in keeping with the most cherished legends in the history of the sport? It was not a disrespect-based debate, but rather a historical comparative one.
I think leaving the sport on your own terms is a wonderful thing to do, especially when you're, one of the greatest fighters of all time. So good luck to him, and I'm sure he'll be around the game. He's boxing through and through. He loves it.
The retirement of Crawford has not been received flawlessly, but this debate has made a definite impression. To others, he is already a great beyond any doubt, a warrior who had perfected the sport in all technical terms and retired without defeat. To others, his premature departure leaves open-ended questions as to how he could have done against some of his time or in some of the long-time contests which so frequently characterize legacies. The history of boxing is full of winners whose success was not only determined by the people they fought, but also the way they fought. Chael Sonnen also responded with cynicism when discussing the retirement announcement of Terence Crawford, and it was evident that he did not take the move as the final one. He challenged the rationality of retreating when he was still successful and relevant on its part, and said that there was something that was not adding up in terms of a competitive perspective. Sonnen had suggested that high-end fighters never give up when there is still an opportunity, money, and respect.
I wish Crawford would have retired. I wish that he wouldn't, but I'll tell you why, because I don't believe it. I just think it's insincere. Now, why would that bother me? What standing do I have in this? I'm just a fan. I'm just a fan, and I'm an outside observer, and I don't believe that Terence Crawford is retired. Now, if he turns out to be retired, I would have to revisit this whole thing, but there was nothing about it that felt right. And all the way down to the reason that he would retire, there's really no worse reason to retire than you're the best. But that reason is the #1 reason given, particularly in combat. Hey, I've already proved everything. It's illogical, and it would be punishing you from reaching the spot that you sacrificed everything to reach.
The GOAT discussion will go on as long as the gloves that Crawford has are hanging on the wall. Historians will examine his unbeatable record, his unchallengeable titles, and how he could subdue his opponent, who had a totally different style. Opponents will cite lost potential and a lack of rivalry that is marquee-worthy. Both points of view will always be present, like in boxing. The fact that Crawford lived at the right time and left a significant impact on the sport can hardly be denied. This opinion was expressed by Stephen A. Smith as he evaluated the position of Terence Crawford at the time of his retirement, and in a greater historical context, he made it obvious that the fact that Crawford has been on top of the sport distinguished him among his colleagues and explained why it was possible to walk away and be considered the best active fighter. Smith described that the very fact of retiring at this level could only naturally create hypothetical discussions regarding how Crawford would have fared with great names across the decades.
Listen, the bottom line is he's special. Pound for pound, he's the best in the world at this particular moment in time. There's no doubt about it, and he's going out on top. He deserves it. And now it's going to warrant questions. What would he have done as a welterweight. Let's say, for example, if he was going against somebody like a Floyd Money Mayweather, if he was going up against a Sugar Ray Leonard or Tommy the Hitman Hearns and people like that, he's in that conversation where you're asking those questions. Some people would pick him to win, others would say no because his boxing brilliance is undeniable. And for him to go out and to step up to super middleweight and to beat Saul Canelo Alvarez says a lot about him. The only thing that I would say...
Stephen A. Smith went on with his evaluation by switching the praise with reflection and indicating what he believed to be the few missing links to the career of Terence Crawford. Although he continued to respect the greatness of Crawford, he said some of these matches would have put more weight on his legacy. Smith mentioned fighters who were influential during the time of Crawford and who had high fan interest, implying that at least having one of them would have resolved old controversies.
Is that I really, really wish there were two fighters that I wished that he had fought. I wish that he had fought the Charlo at the junior middleweight division because obviously they don't like him. They love Errol Spence, and he destroyed Errol Spence. I would have liked to see him fight those guys, one of them anyway. And I definitely think that a guy by the name of Jerron Boots Ennis at the welterweight division, you're going to hear a lot about him in the future. Doggy, Peter, the reason why people don't hear more about him is because people won't fight him.
The retirement of Crawford has brought a physical change on the competitive front of the sport beyond the debate. His departure creates a vacancy on the helm in various divisions, which leads to new entrants and speeds up the change of generational leadership. Titles that used to center around the presence of Crawford are currently being fought for by fighters who are keen on developing their own identities. Lennox Lewis responded favorably as he contemplated the move by Terence Crawford to retire to see it as a shrewd and respectable end to an elite career. His decision to walk away without one of his losses shielded the legacy of Crawford and demonstrated great self-awareness. Regarding that, Lewis emphasized that everything a fighter could want to receive was already received, as Crawford had won titles in different divisions, which meant absolute control.
And earlier this week, Terence Crawford announced his retirement from boxing, three-time undisputed champion, 5-weight world champion. Just describe his legacy and his decision to retire.
Great fighter. I call him Kung Fu because he's got that Kung Fu style of boxing. And showing him the other day, and I seen all the belts that he has on the wall, and I'm like, yo, that's a room full of belts. And he's quite an accomplishment that he did with all the fights. He's a great style. So for him to retire, I think he spent a lot of time in boxing, and it's about time now. And this is the best time to retire when you're on top.
Rolly Romero has said that Terence Crawford is not over with boxing. He gave a great feeling or perception that Crawford will come back to the ring, implying that the competitiveness and love of the game have not died in Crawford. According to the words of Romero, it was emphasized that even after having retired, a champion of the caliber of Crawford would be pulled into the fight by the challenge and the lure of high stakes.
Terence Crawford, brother, just retired. Just what are your thoughts on that? He retired obviously on top, biggest win of his career against Canelo.
I got a feeling he'll be back.
You got what?
I got a feeling he'll be back. Just got a feeling.
Who would he come back against? Why would a Terence Crawford come back at this point?
I don't know. I got a feeling. When you got a feeling, you just got a feeling,
If Terence Crawford's retirement is truly final, it was a wise decision to step away at his peak. Preserving his unbeaten record and legendary status protects his legacy, rather than risking it all chasing more money and risking defeat. Naoya Inoue was talking about the problems and scenarios all professional fighters experience in their careers. He admitted that some situations, probably hard moments in the ring, big demand, or situation-defining pressure in the sport, are not peculiar to an individual athlete, but rather known among all. He said, "I think it's a thing that would cross any fighter. It's something, a stage that would come to any fighter." The retirement of Terence Crawford was a close to the era in the history of modern boxing, having an unblemished record, numerous world championships in the 3 divisions, and a history of being a skilled, powerful, and mindful fighter. Crawford has left the sport as one of the greats. The fact that he chose to retire was a reminder to all the fans that even legends know when to retire at the height of their glory, and will leave a legacy that will inspire the generations to come. Will Crawford ever surprise us by making a comeback, or has he truly terminated his boxing career? Comment your thoughts down below, and also press the like button when you think Crawford has left a legacy